This week is Parshat Bamidbar. Right, we're starting off a new book in the Chumash. We're starting off Sefer Bamidbar, and with the first parsha, which is called Bamidbar. So the Parshat Bamidbar starts off very interesting. Starts off. God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu in the Midbar Sinai by the Oil Moed, and he said as follows. He said, "Tzru'u et rosh kol adat bnei Yisrael mishpachotam devet avotam b'mispar shemot kol zachar l'gugulotam." Count all the Jewish people. A recount of the Jews. Not the first time we were counted, but it's a recount. It's a second counting. This count, it says you should count each shevet, each person to his household, to his tribe, each one separately, and then they're going to tally it all up. However, it says later on that Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu saying, "Achet matei Levi lo tifkod." The tribe of Levi should not be counted with the rest of the tribes, with the rest of Klal Yisrael. Et rosham l'titah b'toch bnei Yisrael, they should not be counted within the Jewish people. The counting of all the tribes in the tribe of Levi. The counting of all the tribes, it was counted from a 20-year-old to a 60-year-old. The counting of Shevet Levi was counted from when they were 30 days old until they were, and up. Now, when exactly was this counting taking place? Very interesting. This counting took place in Iyar, the first day of Iyar. They set up the Mishkan the first of Nisan, and they did the counting on the first of Iyar. Now, what's the reason why Shevet Levi was not counted with the rest of the Jewish people? So Rashi explains over here. God knows what's going to happen. Right? He knows what's going to happen. He knows what choices we're going to make. And he knows that all the people that were counted in this counting are all going to die. They're all going to die in the Midbar. Even though this is long before, this is right before the story of the Meraglim. It's before they were destined that they're going to have to stay 40 years in the Midbar. But God knows. So he said, this group of Levi should not be counted with the rest. Because they are mine, and they did not make the mistake by the Egel. They were not part of the Egel with the rest of the Jewish people. Right? Because the Jews that were died in the Midbar had done both. They did the Egel, or whatever, they were quiet by the Egel, like we mentioned the other day. They made a mistake with the Meraglim, and therefore they were not allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael. Asks a question. He says, we clearly see that Shevet Levi could not have been counted with the rest of the Jewish people. Clearly. Shevet Levi, it says you should count them from 30 days old, from 1 month old. The Jewish people count from 20 years old and up. We'll explain why soon the difference. So clearly they couldn't be counted together. Yet the Torah has to tell me another 2 times. Don't count Levi with the rest of Klal Yisrael. Don't count Levi with the rest of Klal Yisrael. Why? Why is it so insistent not to count them together? So the answer is, he says, what Rashi just said. Rashi just explained, because if they were counted together, they would have had to have been killed with the rest of Klal Yisrael. They would have had to die in the Midbar. What do you see from here? We see from here the way God runs the world, that it is a gezerah, it is a decree against the entire group of human beings. And a day of anger and wrath against the people. Tzaddikim could also be caught up in that wrath. Even though the tzaddik didn't transgress against that particular thing at that particular moment. However, they get, as we say in Arabic, they get chapped in, they get grabbed in. And they could wind up being taken and killed as well. And that's what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, he brings down, that by Vayishua ben Nun, he brings that from the Or HaChaim, that it says that everybody died in the Midbar except for Yeshua ben Nun and Kalev ben Yefuneh. From the people that went to go be Meraglim in the land of Israel. Why does it have to say that? And then it says the other people that went to the land of Israel died because it said Lashon Hara. And not these two. Why does it have to mention this? Explains the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh this din that we just brought down. All the Jews that were counted in this count in Sefer Bamidbar, where we just started, all died. They had all been in the Chet Egel. They all, when the story of the Meraglim happened, they all gave up hope, and they all died in the Midbar. So why did Yeshua and Kalev not die? We said Tzadikim could be grabbed in and die also. Like we're going to explain in a minute. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, we're going to explain in a minute. But Yeshua and Kalev, it says since they were part of a different group. What group were they part of? The Meraglim, the spies that were sent to Israel. So once they were part of a different group, the group of spies, they're now in a different number than the rest of the Jewish people. So then when the rest of the Jewish people died, that whole group of spies were not counted. But the 10 spies which said Lashon Hara, they died because they spoke Lashon Hara. That's why they had a different death than everybody else. They died right away for Lashon Hara that they spoke. But Yeshua and Kalev, which did not talk Lashon Hara, and they were already separated from the rest of the Jewish people, they did not die. And that's also Yair ben Menashe, Yair, the son of Menashe, lived all the way in Israel. He survived everything. Why? Because he was over 60 years old when they left Egypt. And therefore, he was never counted in any of these counts. And that's why, says the Chaim Shmuel David Zatzal, that's why it says the Bechor, right? And a few parashot from now it says the Bechor, special Bechor. God says the Bechor is mine. So all the Bechor, all the firstborns are mine. Why? Because they went ahead and they killed all the firstborns in Egypt. And therefore, just because the firstborns in Egypt, the Egyptians had to be killed, why in the world would the Jewish firstborns be killed? They were not deserving of death. The answer is because once there's a decree against firstborns, that would include everybody which is part of this group. Unless God went ahead and saved them. Took them out from the rest of them. And that's what even Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, right, the one quote-unquote chet, which wasn't the real chet, right? But the one quote-unquote issue that Moshe Rabbeinu did was that he hit the rock instead of talking to the rock, right? So he didn't bring out the greatest Kiddush Hashem possible. Didn't bring out the greatest Kiddush Hashem possible. And even him, he died. Why did he die? So what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? The Ramban explains over there, Moshe Rabbeinu was not part of any of the other issues. But because it was decreed and all the Jews are going to have to die, so therefore Moshe Rabbeinu also had to. Now, how could a tzaddik die if he didn't do anything wrong? So a person has to have this one tiny little thing that he might have done wrong, and a different thing that gets mentioned right now at this particular moment, and that causes him to pass on from the world. Why is this? Says the Chaim Shmuel David Zatzal in important yesod. The yesod is that even though a tzibur, even though a group is made up of a lot of yechidim, and we're going to explain it's made up of a lot of singular people, but once we all come together as a group, we become a new identity. We're a new item. We are now a group. We're all individuals by ourselves, but together we make up a new entity of this group. And therefore, if something's decreed on this group, the whole group gets punished. But it works the other way also, says the Zohar HaKadosh. But Yizkor the Kim at Noach because of the group. The group itself, if you're part of a group, you tefillah, that's what's so special about a minyan. What's special about a minyan is if your prayer alone can't go up fully because you don't have the right machshavot and the right thoughts, but if you're together with a tzibur, you're all counted as one and you're all able to go up together. That's the strength of a tefillah b'tzibur. That's the strength of praying together. Because we now become a new entity which allows it to go up. Which is why in our tefillot, in our prayer, we always include ourselves with everybody else. If you ever want something and you want everyone to pray for something, include yourself with the group. With the group. Say, God, heal all the sick people, and including that person, and including everybody else, right? And if you want money, right, or kids, or whatever it is that a person's praying for, pray for other people also. It says if you pray for other people, it's answered for you as well. Because you're putting yourself with that group now. It's not just, oh, God, look at me. And if God looks at me, who knows what's going to be. But a group, we all have good things, right? Every Jew is malay mitzvot kirimon. Every Jew has mitzvot like a pomegranate. It's full of mitzvot. So together, all of us together have something good, like we're going to explain soon. And that's where Rebbe Lapian Zechatzati v'kadosh v'acha. Now he was always very worried in saying things that might not be true. So when he would end off the prayer, the end of the prayer says, "L'kai netzol shoni meira." Was the time that we call the nafshi sidom and nafshi kafalo to go to here, right? God, anybody ever says anything against me, it should be considered like nothing, etc. Now that's only if I really truly guard myself from doing everything wrong. So he would always include himself in everybody else. You say Elokeinu. If you have one reed by itself, you can crack it. But if it's a group of reeds together, it's a solid item. This solid item of a group of reeds together, that's not crackable. That's not crackable. Now, there's also another analogy which Rebbe Lapian Zatzal says, and this is brought down to the Vigadta, that Rebbe Lapian was one time on a train, and they're looking at the ocean. And he says, when you look at the ocean, it looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. That water looks, yeah, you've ever looked at the Pacific Ocean, yeah? Even the Atlantic, it depends where you're standing, yeah? Well, if you're ever standing there on a nice place and it looks, beautiful, right? People fly to Aruba just to stare at that ocean. It's beautiful looking. But when you take a cup of it and you bring it to the drink, you can't drink it. So that means as a group, it looks amazing. As a group, it could be an amazing thing, whereas singular, not necessarily. Which is what the power of a tzibur is. The power of a klal. And because Shevet Levi was not deserving to die and God didn't want them to pass on with everybody else, therefore he had to go ahead and separate them in a different count. A completely different count, they had to be separate. Now, however, every single tzibur is also made up of yechidim. Every tzibur is made up of singular people as well. And that we find in this week's Parsha different than in the other Parshiyot. Why? Last time the Jews were counted in Parshat Shemot, it didn't mention count each person on their family, on their shevet, on their tribe. No. Every person just brought a half a coin. Right? Remember, you're not supposed to count people. Right? Because if you count people, terrible things can happen, like we find by David HaMelech. Rather, we can only count people for good things. Says Rabbi Zatzal. So Belsky Zatzal. You can only get, which is bring up in the Ramban. You can only count people for good things. You can't count people for bad things. And even when you're counting them, you always have to make sure to count them. You don't count actual people. So over here, we counted people by machzat shekel. Everybody brought a half a coin, and they put it in. The first time they counting by Shemot, they used all those coins to create the base. The silver bases for the krashim, for the beam that held up the Mishkan. And over here they used the coins for which they would use it from then on, for the karbanot, right? Every day there was a karban tamid that was brought, and they would use that money for the karbanot. Why in Shemot did we count everybody, each person singularly, without going by his census of his family? And over here we're going by the family. What's the difference? So he brings that from Rabbi Yaakov. Some Rabbi Zatzal brings that from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh V'Lecha. The reason was because back then, in Parshat Shemot, if we would have counted each tribe separately, what would have caused was each tribe would basically might have turned themselves into their own nation. They wouldn't have felt that we're all one group of Jews, and I just come from a different family within the group of Jews. Each would have counted themselves separately. I am Reuveni. I am not part of the rest of these people. I'm a Shimoni. I'm not part of the rest of the people. That's what it could have caused. It could have caused the pilud. It could have caused this complete separation. This census. However, in our parsha, there was already what? A Mishkan. There was already a Mishkan. The Mishkan was set up when? In Nisan, as we mentioned at the beginning of the shiur. And this counting happened the first day of Iyar. So therefore, we're not worried anymore. Now that there's a Mishkan in the center, and you have everybody camped around the Mishkan in certain ways with the flags, which we're going to explain in a minute. We're no longer worried that the identity of each family by themselves is going to cause them to split up. We're not worried about that anymore. Now, what does this show us? This is showing us the role of each individual. Every individual is special. Every family is special. Every tribe is special. We couldn't do that in Shemot because then everybody would go their own ways. Once now that we have everybody as one unity, now we have to show you that you are different than him. The same way everybody's face is different, everybody's nose is different, every way you look is different. We are different people. We're not all one. We're all one nation. We're all one people. But each one of us have individual traits and strengths that other people do not necessarily have. And this, the Kerem Hatzi brings down, is signified in the flags. Right, it's very interesting. In this Parsha, we have flags. The Jewish people asked for the Galim. We asked for flags. Why we asked for flags? Why did we ask for flags? So it's brought down, the Midrash says, because by Har Sinai, we saw all the angels coming down, right? All the angels came, and the angels were all unified together, each one with flags. So we said, we want flags also. Now Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid, by the way. He was afraid. If each Jewish group gets their own flag, that's actually going to cause a pirud. That's going to cause separate identities of each group. And it will cause arguments. And he's worried about the way that they would be encamped around the Mishkan would also cause arguments. And Hashem had to answer, no, Yaakov Avinu already put in the way they're going to be camped and all that. And if we don't have to worry. That means even though they are. After Har Sinai, Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. But we wanted that thing of flags. Now, what were the flags? What did they signify? So the Kerem Hatzi brings down from the grandfather of the Bet Yosef. He says each flag had its own color. Each flag had its own color. And that color was corresponded to the color of that tribe on the Choshen, on the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. And they had a picture on it. Now remember, there were the four heads, right? There were three tribes on each side, and they had one flag signifying that group. Plus, each tribe had their own flag, according to many. So on Yaakov Avinu, on Yehuda's flag, it had a lion. Because it went by the brachot, the blessings that Yaakov gave them. So everything that was on those flags, Yaakov had already put signified into his kids in the Birchat Yaakov. So on Yehuda's had a lion. On Reuven had a person. Because they compared to the Dudaim, and the Dudaim, which was what he cut to bring to his mother, was a in the shape looked like a person. So there was people, twins. Some say there was a person on his flag. On Ephraim there was a shor, there was an ox. Like Yosef was blessed to be like an ox, and on Dan was a nesher. Was either some say nesher is an eagle, some say it's a kind of vulture, but anyway, it's a nesher. Why a nesher? Because Dan is compared to a nachash, and they say that the body of a nesher without the wings looks like a nachash. It's Kabbalah from the Chachamim. And these four things are the four faces that are on the Merkava. Ayeh, Adam, Nashar, and Nashor. Now every single other Shevet also had their own color and their own picture. Shimon had a picture of Shechem, because of the story of Shimon and Levi and Shechem. Yisachar had a picture of a Chamor, and it was also dark, almost blue, and it had a sun and a moon on it, and so on and so forth. Right? Zvulun had a boat, and so on and so forth. Each one showed the kochot and the strengths of that particular tribe. Now, it goes a little further. It goes even a little deeper. Kerem Hatzi brings down in the beginning of the parasha, he brings down from the Medrash that Yitzchak Avinu, right, that was all from Yaakov that we just brought down. But it ties even to Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak Avinu dug 4 ditches. Right? He dug 4 be'erot, Rabbi Yehuda says. Why did he dig the 4 ditches? In correspondence to those 4 wells that he dug, the Jewish people had 4 flags. Right? Really, each tribe had 4, but there were 4 main flags for each side, for each group of 3. So the Kerem Hatzi brings down from a Chacham Echad, because there's 4 different kinds of people in this world. There's the guy who wants kavod. His entire life is only about honor. Doesn't matter who he spits on, who he steps on, who gets hurt by him. Doesn't matter. His entire life is one thing: kavod, 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 kavod. I want honor. That's one kind of guy. There's another guy who's all to physical strength, gevura, strength. I'm strong. sits in the gym 24/7, all about strength and trying to show his might and trying to show how strong he is. Then you have the person who lives their entire life for money. Entire life for money. Never happy because he never has enough money. But day and night, busy with money. And then you have the final person who their entire life is their children. Kids. Those are the four kinds of people there are. The person who cares about strength, the person who cares about their own honor, the person who cares about money, and the person who cares about their kids. And these four things were symbolized in these four flags that we mentioned. Yehuda's was it symbolized by what? The lion, Gevurah, strength. Reuven's had a picture of kids, had a picture of a person. Why? Because remember he cut those flowers to bring to his mother. Rachel wanted those flowers. She took the flowers, and therefore Leah said in exchange, Yaakov is going to be with me, and therefore she had more shvatim because of that. That's banim. That signifies the person who lives their entire life for kids. Over there also, by the way, if a person lives their entire life for kids and neglects their own spiritual growth, it's a problem as well. The next one we said was a show, was an axe. An axe has to do with honor. Has to do with honor. And kavod. And the final one we said was a nesher, was the bird. The bird is gava. But gavato shechakim. It's gava. There's a certain haughtiness to the bird. There's a haughtiness to it. And these were on the four flags. Why? Because these are all midot that are put into people. People have different traits. People are different. But if we take those flags and we camp around what? How we camp? We camped around the Mishkan, then we could use all the things that God gave us for good. A person can use the Gevurah for good. Kavod for good. Ga'ava not for yourself. You can have Ga'ava for others. Banim is also good. Everything can be done good in the right way. And that's what Yitzchak exemplified in his own lifetime. He showed this in his own lifetime. Where? He showed his Gevurah, he showed his strength when he went ahead and he told his father to tie him tightly. Remember, he was 37 years old at the time that his father brought him up as a korban. Akedat Yitzchak, he was 37 years old. And his father said, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to slaughter you. 37-year-old guy tells his father, go fly a kite. He didn't do that. He lay down and he said, Abba, tie me really tight. Tie me really, really tight so I don't flinch, I don't become pasul. That's Gevurah. That's real strength. That's real strength. His money, you find that he gave maaser. He would take the maaser and he would plant it and give all those fields to the aniyim, all to the poor people. Wealth is for what reason? To give. The reason why God makes the person wealthy is that he can help others. That he can go ahead and give it to other people and help other people, and other people should have from it. Ga'ava, he learned by Shem and Ever. His chachma he got from Shem and Ever. Stayed in his corner. Until Avimelech saw that everything was really only because of him. And Banim, he had two sons, Yaakov and Esav. And what was his goal in life? His goal in life was, I'm not going to take only the Yaakov who sits and learns Torah all day. I'm going to take also the Esav, which he knew didn't learn Torah all day. He knew who Esav was. But he wanted Esav not just to have this world. He wanted Esav to have a way to get to Gan Eden. He wanted Esav also to be a good person. How? You're supposed to raise your child according to what? That child's ways. What does that mean? That means you see what the child is, you see the strengths of that child, and you try to use those strengths for the right thing. Like we're bringing down over here was the whole point of the pictures of the Degalim. The point of Esav was that it was supposed to be Yisachar Zevulun. Esav was supposed to support Yaakov. Esav was supposed to make all the money and support Yaakov, and therefore the brachot that were given to Esav, right? He wanted to give to Esav, but in the end he gave to Yaakov, were all about this world things. And once he found out that Yaakov had taken the brachot, by Yechrad, he shook, he became so frightened. Why? He said he saw Gehenna. What do you mean he saw Gehenna? Says the Kerem Atzvi, he saw that now Esav had no way to make it to Gan Eden. He saw that Esav is now for sure going to go to Gehenna. Because he's not going to do anything good in his life. He's not learning Torah. He's not doing what's right thing. And the only thing he could have done is supported Yaakov, and now he's not going to support Yaakov either. So he saw there's no hope for Esav anymore. That was the Banim, but he really wanted that the Banim should go in the right way. That Esav should support Yaakov. And that he brings down was it says that the 4 rivers, they flowed from Gan Eden, right? The river comes down and split into the four rivers. So he explains that in the days of Adam and Rishon, there was really only one river, Rashkot et Agan, right, which watered the garden for Gan Eden. Really, to begin with, there was only one river. Once Adam and Rishon sinned, it's split into 4. What 4? These 4 things: honor, strength, wealth, and children. These 4 things, it's split into these 4. And if a person follows those roads, he follows the streams and uses all these things for good, then he can make it to Gan Eden. But if he doesn't follow those roads, he uses these things for not good, then it takes him the opposite direction, to the thing that's opposite Gan Eden. But there's something more, Rabbi Zatzal wanted to say, there's something more that we see over here. We see every tribe is different, and yet we make up one group. We make up one Klal Yisrael. Not by all being the same, by being different. You see, Napoleon, he brings down, Napoleon and Stalin had a very big question. And their question was, were the Jewish people a nation, or are they not a nation? Are we a nation or not? Now, we know we are a nation. We know we're one group. We're the Jewish people. What makes us a nation? Napoleon gathered a Sanhedrin. He gathered a group of rabbis, and he tried to figure this out. And when he looked at it, he saw that the Jewish people don't have one language. The Jewish people don't have one way of looking. The Jewish people don't live in one place. They're all different kinds of people. Right? You have Ashkenazim, you have Sfaradim, you have Hasidim, you have all different kinds. All different stripes, all different strokes for all different folks, right? Everybody looks different, sound different. All different. Stalin had a similar view. So both Napoleon and Stalin, which had different consequences, both decided that the Jewish people are not really a nation. Now, what effect did that have? On the Napoleon, that had the effect that the Jews in France were considered French. We weren't considered Jews. And the Jews in Italy were considered Italian. And the Jews in the other cities were considered from that place. And therefore, it was the emancipation. We were allowed to go out of the ghettos. We were considered a part of the group of the nation. We just had a different religion, but we were considered French. Stalin used it the other way around. He gave certain rights to different nations. And when the Jews wanted a right as well, he said, you Jews are not a nation, because you're all different people. You have all different languages. You have all different ways of being. You have all different customs. The Sephardi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews, even in the Soviet Union, you had a lot of different kinds. So he decided the Jewish people were not a nation. Because they define nation as having one language, living in one homeland. And that's why when Zionism started, the whole goal of Zionism to begin with, why did they have to make this a language called Ivrit? Why did they also Ivrit and they phased out Yiddish and they phased out all the other languages? Why? The reason was because they wanted to show the world that the Jews are a nation. We're not a hodgepodge of people. We're a nation. We have one language. We have one culture. We have one land. And we're a nation like all other nations. Now, that might be so in order to try to show the rest of the nations of the world. But in essence, the whole power of the Jew is we're not based on a land. We're not based on a one language. We're not based on any of that. Our connection one with the other is the Torah. Right? As we mentioned, each degel, each group, we were camped around the Mishkan. Each group was different. Every Shevet was different with their own characteristic traits. Right? Each flag showed the characteristic traits of that Shevet. Each side with their main flag showed one of the 4 different kinds of man that there are. It all signified things. Yet we were all one nation. We were all together as one. Because there's one thing that connected us all together. The Mishkan. What was in the Mishkan? The Luchot, the Torah. Right? God, the Torah, and the Jews are one. What combines all Jews together, no matter what language we speak, is the Torah. And that's where it's always been throughout history. We're not a nation state based upon land, even though Israel is our land. Yerushalayim is our capital, 100%. But that doesn't make us Jews. We're Jewish people no matter where we are in the world. No matter what language you talk. Doesn't matter if you talk Spanish or Hebrew or English or French. Doesn't matter. What connects us all? The Torah. This one entity of the Torah. That's what keeps us all together. But remember, each one of us is an individual. As an individual, each person has to do their part. What does that mean, each person has to do their part? So the story that Yaakov Linsky Zatzal brings down. And it's a story that happened in America in the early days, of the past century, in the beginning. And there was a shul that really didn't keep anything. The congregants really didn't keep anything. They didn't even keep Yom Kippur. They would eat the meal right before Yom Kippur. They would come to the Bet Knesset, and the Hazan would yodel a little bit, have a nice tune to his tefillah, and then they'd all go home and they'd eat. And they all decided the reason why I could eat is because the rabbi fasts for us. The rabbi is the one who's supposed to keep all the mitzvot, and he does it all for us. We're all one group, as you mentioned, the klal. We're a group, and we're judged together, and the rabbi does everything, and therefore we don't really have to do anything. One Yom Kippur night, a guy had a question he had to go ask the rabbi. Shows up at the rabbi's house, he comes in, and he sees the rabbi sitting there eating. The rabbi is sitting there, Yom Kippur night, he's eating. So he says, Rabbi, aren't you fasting for all of us? We're all eating. We're relying on you to fast, Rabbi. The rabbi looks up, and he says, you think I'm eating for you? When I'm eating for me. For all of you, I'm still fasting. Right? It's a joke, really. I think it's a true story, but either way, it's a joke, right? Point of the matter is, every person has to pull their own weight. We can't just rely, if we're all part of one group, that one person is going to do and all the rest of us are going to sit in the back and twiddle our thumbs. Every single one of us, it's imperative for every single person to attain, to grow, to build everybody up, because we're all one group. There's no leader. I mean, there's a leader, there's a chachamim, but we're all one group together. We all have to push our weight and we all have to do. And one of the main things that we have to have is, it says, Bamidbar Sinai, right? It says this was given by Har Sinai. Why was it given by Har Sinai? Why does it mention Har Sinai by the count? Why does it mention Midbar Sinai? What does one thing have to do with the other? Why is it mentioning Midbar Sinai by the count? So Bezrat Hashem, we're going to give another reason tomorrow. The reason we're going to give tonight is as follows. The only way that we could have become one unit, as one Klal Yisrael, that afterwards had the ability that we should each be counted as individuals of each family and each shevet, is only because when we came to begin with, by Har Sinai, we were truly b'shalom. We had complete peace between all of us. Everybody together had a complete love. No Jews were fighting with each other. Everybody was happy with each other. There was no fighting. No fighting. Everybody got along. It's an amazing thing to say all the Jewish people got along. But yes, there was a time when we all got along. All of us. Went a little downhill afterwards, but we all got along. And because of that, the Torah was able to be given to us. And that's what we find. Think of Yaakov Linsky Zatzal and others bring that. That's what we find by David HaMelech. David HaMelech. There were so many tzaddikim, so many great people. And yet when he would go to battle, sometimes people would die. Sometimes people would die. Why? There was no unity. There was a lack of shalom. Yet in the days of Achav was a wicked king. Caused the Jews to serve Avodah Zarah. Yet, he never lost. He never lost the battle. Why not? Because the Jews were in unison. The Jews were all together as one. There was no sinat chinam. And as you mentioned other times, sinat chinam is really any sinah. Any hatred that a person has for another person, for something somebody did to you, whatever, is for no reason. Because God does everything. And for the person who did it to you, you got to pray for him. Hazit. He's sadly spiritually deficient. That's why he did something to me. You got to pray for him for what he did. So the reason why a lot of times the Jewish people are protected. When are we protected? When there's no sinah, when there's no hatred, when we are truly united ki ish echad b'lev echad, with one beating heart. But when we're into fighting with each other, then anybody could get us. Once we're not unified, once we're not all that one stalk of reeds together, Anybody can pick us away one by one. And that's one of the big lessons of this parsha, is that yes, we're all individuals. We all have to realize, we're going to sum it up right now. We all have to realize, number one, we're all individuals, and God gave each one of us special traits that only you have. You're special, you're different than everybody else. We don't have to look exactly the same with the same white shirt, with the same black jacket, and say, we don't have to look exactly the same. We can look different. We are different. Every tribe was different. Yet, we're all also one. And therefore, each one of us are supposed to take those traits that God gives us and put it to the greater good. Use it for the right direction, for the right reason. Because all of us are intertwined and all of us are one. And if we all have to worry about each other and take care of each other. Because remember, if we don't take care of our fellow Jew, nobody else is going to take care of our fellow Jew. And if we don't take care of our fellow Jew, then God doesn't want to take care of us either. But if we go ahead and we take care of our fellow Jew, and we're all one together, then God protects us from anything, and nothing can ever happen to the Jewish people. We should learn from this, and all of us should truly become unified as one. To see the Shekhinah again clearly before us, like we saw in Har Sinai.